express our praise and gratitude to Allah Ta'ala, and we seek blessings upon the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. A few more points that I forgot to mention about taqwa. Dr. Khurram reminded me of a really important point last week. All of you remember the narration of the two companions speaking to each other, and there's multiple narrations in terms of who's speaking to who, of a companion asking another companion, define for me what is taqwa. Okay. And so one narration is that you have to walk through a forest of thorns, and all you have to protect yourself is a thin shroud. So what do? You bring the shroud close to yourself so you don't get pricked. That act is taqwa. Okay. Another narration is that there's thorns everywhere, but there's always a space for you to step on, a safe space. So that act of carefully stepping, watching where you step, and then you get to the other side, that's taqwa. So this is also building on the point, this last point, about taqwa being integrated not just with belief, but with action. Okay. And even think of the concept of fasting. When we say that fasting is prescribed for you so that you may get taqwa, or we say that Ramadan is the month of fasting, fasting is itself the act of taqwa. Because what do you do when you're fasting? You're vigilant. You're consciously on guard. Okay. That is the act of taqwa. Okay. What we're going to see in quite a few weeks, but I'll just touch on it right now. The opposite of taqwa is fisq. So the fasiq is the opposite of the muttaqi. So what is the muttaqi? The one who is on guard, who brings the jacket close so as not to get pricked. The fasiq is the opposite. The fasiq lets loose. Okay, the fasiq is shameless. Okay. And then if, again, we're not going to look at it right now, but you can look at it at a separate time. Here, what are we taught about taqwa? They're the ones who have guidance, or they're the ones who have success. If you look at the section on the fasiq, which is ayahs 26 and 27, same surah, it says those are the people of misguidance, those are the people of loss.
Isn't fahsha shame as well?
So that would be indecency. Fahish is indecency. So the fasiq is the person, okay, so the hypocrite, the nifaq, the munafiq, is the one who won't tell you that he doesn't pray. Okay? The fasiq is the one who would say, well, I mean, what's wrong with me selling liquor? I don't even pray. Okay? It sounds logically consistent, but the problem is it's a shamelessness. The hypocrite still hides his or her sins, still does not want people to know that they're a hypocrite. The fasiq is shameless. They have no problem advertising it. That's much worse. So fahisha would be more referring to just the behavior of indecency. Okay.
And
Yeah.
there's like a element of maliciousness in what they're doing, right? It's not just like they're just, because like, I mean, now there are like some people who are, they're sincere, but they don't, complete all their actions or whatever, and they hide their sins. It's different than what I understood munafiq.
Well, we're going to talk about two types of munafiqs. So
Okay.
one type of munafiq is the willful fraud. The other one who is the one who is suffering from what we would call lack of willpower, right? It might be fair to say that everyone who is not in the direction of guidance has some degree of malice anyway. The kafir might have some degree of malice, the fasiq definitely does, and it might be that the munafiq also does. But the key point I want to make is that some munafiqs definitely yes, some munafiqs maybe not, but it might effectively become yes as a result of their actions. Yes, ma'am?
Because even weren't the Sahabas even scared that they were munafiqs
Yeah.
too? Because it wasn't like, oh, I'm purposely doing something wrong. It's you should always be kind of aware, to be afraid that you could be a munafiq.
You should definitely be concerned about being a munafiq, absolutely. Yeah.
So does
You-
that, but does that mean everyone has some maliciousness in them then?
I wouldn't say everyone has maliciousness, but everyone probably has some sin, right? Or at least most everyone. Right? Munafiq is much further down the line, right? But we'll get to those things, inshallah. The key point I want to make is just to give you a sense of the different paradigms. Okay? So now, this section, ayah 3 and 4, is about the people of taqwa. We're going to look at 6 attributes of those people of taqwa. Okay? Just taken straight from the text. Alladhina yu'minuna bil ghayb. So number 1, they believe in the unseen. They believe in the ghaib. Underline, if you're writing this, belief, and underline unseen, because we have to define them both. Number 2, they establish salah. Number 3, they spend, underline that, well, you don't have to if you're talking too fast, of what we have bestowed upon them. Okay, we'll do those first 3. They believe in the unseen, they establish salah, they spend what we have bestowed upon them.
What was this? Believe in unseen and what?
So underline belief
Okay.
and underline unseen.
Okay.
These are big words.
Okay.
And then the second one, underline establish and underline salah, which is almost the whole thing. Yeah.
Just finished, man.
Yeah. So the next one, they spend, underline spend, of what we, might as well underline we because we have to talk about that, and then have bestowed upon them. Okay. And then, if time permits, we'll do the next three, inshallah, after that. So the first one is الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. Simple translation is they believe in the unseen. The word iman, which we often translate as belief. When we speak of belief in our culture, what are we usually saying? We're saying, I take this to be true, but I can't prove it. Okay. That's usually what we mean by belief. Something rational. But when we're using iman, we're talking about something more substantial than that. Okay. What is iman? To have iman means you have such a level of security that people feel secure about you, or people feel secure just by being in your company. Just like when we were talking about the salihin, that the people of salihin have such good character that it causes people around them to have good character. That iman is to have such a level of security that people feel secure by being in your company. Okay? The root of iman, aman, security, comes from the same word, right? Or amana, trust, comes from the same word. Okay? This is iman. Or if you just want to give a simple definition, iman is enter into security. This is what it actually means. This word that we're translating into belief. So when I'm saying I believe something, I have iman in something, we're saying that I have security about it. This is more than just intellectual belief, I take it to be true. I'm comfortable in it. I'm solid in it. Okay. This is iman. Ghaib is essentially that which is beyond our perception. So unseen is a simple translation, but it's also beyond our hearing. Right? So, what are some things that are in the ghaib? Anything. Easy answer. Angels are in the unseen. What else? I always wait to see how long before someone mentions jinns. Young people, that's the first thing that's mentioned. Okay, what else?
The future?
Future is in the unseen. Absolutely. Because I don't know what my destiny is, either in this world or the next world. What else? Allah is in the unseen. Fourth thing that is mentioned after everything else. Okay, things not even the right word there. What else? What else is in the unseen? Okay, so the afterlife, Jannah, Jahannam, they're all in the unseen. History is also in the unseen. At the end of Surah Yusuf, Allah Ta'ala speaking to the Prophet, peace be upon him, saying, you were not here when this happened. This is from the unseen. This is from the ghaib. So think about this. What else is involved with all this? If I'm reading a history book, especially of a controversial topic, a hot button topic, let's say Palestine, what am I going to look at before I even open up the book?
Author.
And what about the author?
Bias.
Yeah, whatever it is I can figure out about the author. I might look at the publisher, right? Because I'm deciding whether or not I trust it. Okay? So ghaib has this idea of trust built into it. We believe in the unseen, we have iman in the unseen. So history, I trust that this is true. Okay? Unless we've seen the Prophet, peace be upon him, in a dream. Okay? You have not seen the Prophet, peace be upon him. We trust that whole story. Next to him is Abu Bakr, next to him is Omer, right? So that's also part of the unseen. So Allah Ta'ala, angels, jinns, the future, and history, they're all in the unseen. Okay. Now think about this. I was just, someone posted on Facebook this video about this mantis shrimp. Have you guys heard about this? It's like this shrimp thing that has something like 9 times the vision or the visual range that we have. So we can see, I forgot, red, green, blue, that's the core. This has, mantis shrimp has like 16 different things, right? That's the whole range. So then I wonder, okay, maybe we just can't see the jinn. Maybe like a mantis shrimp can see the jinn, right?
Could be.
And not to really make this point further, that the Prophet, peace be upon him, is reported to have said that if you're out at night, or if you're at night and you hear a dog barking, if you hear a donkey braying, say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, because they see things that you don't see. So it is possible that they might be in the unseen just from us, but not necessarily from all animals, yeah.
There was, I know this is something that I've heard maybe in the basic community, but that
Probably.
So
that you know,
It's
the babies
authentic.
that
So
the
it's-
babies can see them too, but
Maybe.
they can't see them after they start talking because then they can start.
So I wonder about that,
communicating.
like, you know, when babies have that stare, you know, when they're,
And they're smiling.
yeah,
It's not
yeah.
really gas.
So maybe,
I heard
yeah.
that was like angels.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
heard that was
so-
angels.
It's a nice thought, at least I think that's angels, but only assist, right? You know. Okay, so what else? How is Iman bil Ghaib like Alif Lam Mim. Think about what we just said about Alif Lam Mim. How does that parallel Iman bil Ghayb, belief in the unseen?
That's what Omer just said about it forces you to put your intellect at the foot. I mean, just kind of submit to Allah subhanahu wa
Yeah.
ta'ala.
So think of the form. With Alif Lam Mim, I'm saying there's limits to my knowledge that Allah Ta'ala is not bound by. With Iman bil Ghayb, I'm saying there's limits not just to my knowledge, but to my perception that Allah Ta'ala is not bound by. It's parallel. All 6 attributes of taqwa parallel what we've said about Alif Lam Mim. So Iman bil Ghayb, on the one hand, it's emphasizing that I have limits to what I can perceive, but it's also saying that my world is so much wider. Okay. Now, to make that even relevant for our time and place, you don't have it very much now, but the big philosophy in academics back in the 1950s was called logical positivism. I mean, it's from a philosopher named Augustine Comte. You don't need to remember that, but you'll understand the idea. The idea was that if I couldn't physically prove that something's there, then as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't exist.
Wait, what?
If I couldn't physically, not again,
Oh.
sorry, I have to do that visually, prove that it's there, then as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't exist, right?
Physically or visually?
Sorry?
Visually also?
In any capacity. So it means essentially, A'udhu Billah, God, angels, so forth and so on, they don't exist. Unless you can prove it to me that they exist, right? But a lot of people still have that sentiment today anyway, okay? Not as a form of philosophy. And right here from the beginning, first ayah already is going in contrast to that. Alif Lam Mim. There are people in the world who will give their life if they have to, rather than say that this is from someone other than Allah. Second ayah, no doubt, categorical. Third ayah, there's a world beyond my perception. So what I'm saying is that if you really think of common, modern, postmodern thought, first 3 ayahs are going right against that. Now, for most people, this point is irrelevant. For people in the university environment, students and professors, this is very bitter material. Something saying that there's the realm of the unseen. That this book is categorically without doubt. Even la raiba, that's essentially absolute negation. Just like la ilaha. It's an absolute negation that there's any doubt about the book in the book. Yeah? Which is a very prickly idea in our society. Yeah? We're saying there's absolute truth here. Small point, maybe it'll benefit you or not. So, الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةِ. They establish salah. So salah is what? Salah is the 5, the formal prayers, right? The canonical prayers. What does the word salah mean? Anyone?
What is Islam?
Interesting point. Trying to remember if Islah is seen or sawed. But it comes from the same word that suleh, like treaty, comes from. The word meaning connection. Okay. Now think back to when we were speaking about Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We said that the B is all about connection. Rahmah is not just mercy that brings the receiver, the giver and the receiver closer. And Salah is all about connection. Okay? Connection with Allah Ta'ala. Okay? How do I learn how to pray? We've discussed this point. I learned from someone who learned from someone who learned from someone who learned from the Prophet, peace be upon him. We are following the way of the Prophet, peace be upon him. How do I know what time it is to pray? Where the sun is in the sky or how long my shadow is? I'm connecting to nature. Okay. Allah Ta'ala, the Prophet, peace be upon him, nature. What is the best prayer? The one that's done in congregation, connecting to the community. And ultimately, I'm seeking to connect to myself. Connecting to Allah Ta'ala, connecting to myself. So you're connecting to 5 at the very least. Allah Ta'ala and the Prophet, peace be upon him. Within your environment, nature, and the community. And then yourself. This is your goal with the Salah. To establish Salah. What does that mean? What does it mean if I have established Salah?
You made it like the most important part of your day.
Yeah. Yeah, it becomes a routine of my day, right? Breakfast, lunch, dinner, waking up, going to sleep. Salah is a part of my day. Okay. Now think of this also as levels. I keep speaking about levels like on a staircase. One person reaches a point where they've scheduled their day so they have their breaks to take Salah, okay, to make their Salah. A level above that is the person who schedules their whole day around Salah time, right? So my father, mashallah, for at least, I think 2 decades, he's been praying all 5 at the masjid. Even when he worked, he's retired now. So mashallah, I mean, he would take time out. Okay, I'm praying not just at the masjid, I'm praying in Jama'at, right? And so he would take a longer work day to compensate for the time. Yeah.
So you know, you said establish is like you plan your day around it. You sort of like, you know,
So I'd say
you
that's a step
schedule-
more of establishment, yeah.
So like, if you miss Salah, are you still like not like consistent?
Good question.
Like,
So
but,
does
like,
that disqualify you from
once in a
establish?
while? Yeah, like.
Yeah. I would look at this idea of istiqam or iqam salah as a process, right? That your normal state is salah is firm. But you're going to have times. Were there times where the Prophet, peace be upon him, prayed a prayer late?
Traveling.
It's like
Yeah.
a war, right? Though? Like
Still.
physically fighting
Yeah.
someone.
But the point is that if it is possible that he did, then it's definitely possible that we do, right? So even if that negates me, suppose hypothetically, what does that change? I still work to make all my salah anyway. So it's not so much a status as much as it is a process, an ongoing process. Think about this according to how we read narrations. And I think I've already shared this, that we're taught that 2 rakah of nafil is more valuable than the whole universe, right? 2 rakah of nafil are more valuable than the whole universe. So we think of this from the perspective of reward. Think about how huge the reward is of nafil. And then on top of that, think about how huge the reward is for sunnah. And then on top of that, think about how huge the reward is for fard. Or the person who has a much higher level, same hadith, same wording, that 2 rakats are more valuable than the universe, they would rather give up the whole universe than miss 2 rakah of nafil. Okay? That's a deeper level to get to, beyond what I'm at. So the point is that look at all this as, even within this definition of establishing salah, as increasing, or perfection, refining. Okay. Establish salah, connection, and an ongoing process. How is this related to Alif Lam Mim? How is this related to belief in the unseen? What's the parallel?
I mean, aren't you praying to something in the unseen, and then
Absolutely.
you're like following the directions of something in the
Mhm.
unseen?
Hmm. Yeah, it's unseen
you're
all
like-
over.
It's like worth, like basically, like for you enough to like you believe in the unseen that much that you like would schedule your day around it,
Yeah.
that you'd be sad if you missed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Multiple levels here. Even I am saying that this act of standing, bowing, prostrating, and reciting what I'm reciting has more benefit than just the stretching. Okay? More benefit than just the breathing that goes with all the recitation. And I'm saying the benefit might be immense that I don't even realize, I can't even comprehend how huge the benefit is. But it's beyond something that I'm capable of ever measuring in this world. Maybe I can see the effect in some capacity, but not really. Okay? So yeah, it's a very similar concept. Alif Lam Mim, the world beyond. Belief in the unseen, you're connecting to the world beyond, and likewise for this.
I think this is the first, sorry.
Yeah.
No, go ahead, Fatima.
I don't know. I think this is the first time that like any action has come that we have to do.
Very nice point, yeah.
Right? Like in Surah Fatha, there's pretty much nothing except, I mean,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
belief obviously, and then, but I think this is the first time where like
Mhm.
any kind of
That's a really good
ritualized-
observation.
Yeah.
Technically, it's not yet a command.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
command does not count for about 80 ayahs.
Okay.
Wait, that doesn't count as a command?
Yeah,
So-
that was my question.
No, this is saying, here's what the people of Taqwa are like.
Oh,
Right? We're not
okay.
even told to be the people of Taqwa. But we are saying, if we are the people of Taqwa, we have guidance. So that's what we want to be, but we're not told be the people of Taqwa. That doesn't happen until like ayah 24, right? Here, it's saying, here's what they do. There are other attributes in the Quran of the people of Taqwa, like when they're angry, they forgive, right? That's not in this list. So when you see a list in the Quran, okay, one question is, okay, are these commands? I'm saying these are not commands. But also to see, okay, why are these being mentioned together when other attributes are not there? Yeah. But still, nevertheless, of all the actions that could have been mentioned first, Salah is the one that's mentioned first. Yeah. That's a very important point. Number 3, they spend of what we have bestowed upon them. First, the easy point, we. Who, what is we? Easy question. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, grammatically, this is the royal we. In terms of Quranic usage, it seems repeatedly, but not always, but repeatedly, that when Allah ta'ala is using we, it's in reference to royal behavior. What is royal behavior? When he is bestowing something. So here, he is bestowing rizq upon people. So, some even say that when you see we and he's bestowing something, it might include the means, like you're mentioning the means in your presentation. You know, how you get to, how Allah Ta'ala makes it happen. Allah knows best, these are more theological points to think about. Nevertheless, this is not the only case in the Quran where we is being used by someone other than Allah. So for example, let's really briefly, just so you can see it, let's go to Surah Al-Kahf, Ayah 80. I think it's Ayah 80. I have to look it up.
Kahf is 18.
Surah 18.
Yeah. Don't you get the Friday reminder? Surah 18 on Kahf.
You haven't read your Surah Al-Kahf
Yes.
today. I get that every week, yeah. That's because I don't like your app.
What ayah did you say?
I think it's Ayah 80, right around there. This is when Musa alayhi salam is speaking to Khidr alayhi salam. 81, I'm sorry, 81.
Does anyone need a Quran?
Anybody need a Quran translation?
Do you need one?
I do.
You do?
Maybe he's like, I got it
Here,
memorized,
there's one
just
here.
not the same language. Yeah.
I have my Mandarin translation.
So I got, there's a stack.
A Mandarin Rosetta Stone should be coming, inshallah, one of these days.
Amina, did you move the stack? I had a stack of them.
Sorry? I'm sorry?
There already was a
I
meeting.
didn't.
Yeah.
Rosetta Stone, no, I was saying mine. Yeah,
Uh,
I got to really repeat it.
Omer took my Malcolm X.
Sorry?
Omer took my Malcolm X last week, so I couldn't.
No, remember it's like what's up?
You know what's,
I have a translation
that
and
nobody talks about?
Anyone?
We always talk about Malcolm X, I'm saying this because you're leaving. Malcolm X said his Hajj. That's actually his second Hajj.
Yeah, you said that.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
He went on a Hajj before that, like 5 years earlier.
Really?
And came back. Yeah. It was
Why
his
didn't
second.
like that? Like, yeah, why didn't it make
He was
the...
in a different place in terms of guidance at the time. There's even like the subtle clue. The book is really amazing for the subtle clues because his name is what? Al-Hajj. The general practice is if you go on one Hajj, you're Haji. If you go on two Hajjs or more, you're Al-Hajj.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I don't know if that's still the practice.
Well, I
But,
didn't know.
yeah. Okay, so Ayah 81. I don't know where Omer went, but so Khidr alayhi salam is telling Musa alayhi salam why he did this, why he did this, why he did this. And so speaking about the boy, he says, فَأَرَدْنَا. He's speaking about himself and he's using we. We intended that the Lord should substitute for them one better than him in purity and mercy. So here's a person using we to speak about himself. So I just want to draw your attention to that it is not only Allah Ta'ala that uses, who uses we in the Quran, or Allah Ta'ala is Khidr alayhi salam is using it. Okay.
Is it also because this person has so much wisdom that Allah bestowed him with that?
Could be. Yeah. I mean, I haven't really looked, but I don't recall coming across a hadith where the Prophet, peace be upon him, was ever saying we, right? If any of you ever come across it, let me know. I've not come across something like that.
Well, one thing that I learned was that, so at that time, like an emperor or a king would address himself as we, because he's saying, like, we, and I'm representing, the office of king and my lineage going back all the kings, this dynasty. So it refers to, so the prophet would never do that because it's a point of arrogance. Yeah.
Okay. Could be. Allah knows that. So they spend. Now this word that I'm translating as spend, infaq, actually means to give to the point of exhaustion. This is infaq, to give to the point of exhaustion. Exhaustion you can read a few ways. Exhausted in terms of you've just exhausted yourself, or you've exhausted your wealth. Okay? You've given to the point of exhaustion. This is the people of taqwa. They give to the point of exhaustion. They give to the point of depletion. This is infaq.
Can it also be giving non-wealth, like your time, your effort, and all that?
Very good question. This is the perfect segue into the next point. So what would a person be giving? Okay. Generally, the language the Quran uses is your wealth and your soul. Right? So your wealth can be financial wealth, obviously. It might be something else beyond that, skills. And then souls might be time or even your whole life. Right? So yeah, absolutely. It would not be limited just to cash.
I know you're supposed to obviously like spend from what you love, but I also had a question kind of like, is it, if Islam is supposed to be like the middle path, I mean, how are you spending to exhaustion? Like,
Yeah, right.
that's
So the person of taqwa is at the top of the letter, right? What is my minimum spending requirement? What's the minimum?
2.5%.
Zakat, and that's only if I'm eligible for zakat, right? Do I have to give sadaqah above zakat?
No.
But if I'm feeling like I want to or I should, that question comes about 2/3 of the way into the surah. they ask you of what they should spend, right? What's the answer to that question?
Of what you love.
That's different. That's in Surah Nisa. That you should spend of your surplus. So this is a level even above that. So I mean, think about the Sahabas, right? Did all the Sahaba give all of their wealth? No. We know of Omar wanting to compete with Abu Bakr. May Allah be pleased with them. So he gives half his wealth. Abu Bakr gives his whole wealth. Is that an obligation on me? No. But it is saying that that's a permission, right? It might be saying that okay, this is something to aspire to. Because the Prophet, peace be upon him, does say what? That you should reach the point in your sadaqah that every joint is giving in sadaqah every single day. Okay? And then I always make the point that, we all know that smile is sadaqah, but nobody ever smiles, right? So after one of my khutbahs, when I said that, somebody came up to me and said, we don't smile because you don't smile. All right, fine. Okay. So the point is that there are many things to give, but I'm not at all a weak or bad Muslim if I'm not giving all of my wealth. I'm a bad Muslim if I'm not doing the minimum, right? And I have the ability to do so. And meaning there's nothing hindering me, because there might even be things in my culture that are hindering me. And I don't even like the language of bad Muslim anyway, but the point being that my Islamic requirement is usually this low, but I'm invited to reach all the way higher than Mount Everest. Okay. There's also a line between infaq and delusion. I might decide that God is making me a promise that He's not making. That okay, I'm going to give all my wealth, I'm going to be fine. Okay, that's not what's being stated here. Think about what's going on. They are giving of what Allah has bestowed upon them. So how do they look at their wealth? It's coming from Allah. It's not theirs. It's coming from Allah. Allah's bestowed it upon them. So they don't even own it. Right? This is what we always hear about in khutbahs. They actually live it. Now think about this a step further. If, let's say I have this amount of excess wealth, okay, and someone is coming to me asking for a donation, and I know it's completely legitimate what they're asking for, okay, and I can easily give the wealth. I won't even feel it. What makes it hard?
Fear of like poverty.
Fear that something's going to happen, right? But what do we see here? They know that the source of struggle is also the source of my wealth. That my wealth is coming from Allah Ta'ala, and my struggles are also coming from Allah Ta'ala. Okay. So if I'm giving of the wealth that He gave me in His name, and a struggle hits me tomorrow, I'm still going to be okay. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but I'll still be okay.
What if it's like you don't have surplus, but you still want to give, and then you give?
So I think the first thing to look at is is there anybody in my world who has rights over me, right? So let's say I have to provide for such and such people. I don't have the right to take the wealth that I'm supposed to be using for them away from them. So this is the surplus point, right? If it's just me, then I can decide how many meals I want to skip, right? As long as I'm not violating my body's rights. See what I'm saying?
What if it's like 2 days? Like they had like 2 days or something, and they gave like.
And you're going to be fine still with one date, and you can.
Like, okay, like for like me personally, at least, like if I, so like my parents will like always like give me spending money.
Yeah.
And then if I want to like use it and like spend it on something that I don't need, like if I want to give sadaqah,
You
then
mean
my
like,
mom.
oh,
will
for
be
something,
like,
I think
yeah,
like,
then like my
this is something you
parents-
don't need. I thought you were talking
No,
about
no.
One Direction.
No. Okay, no. So then like my parents will be like, that's not sadaqah money, that's your money. Like why?
Then
are
you gotta
doing
listen.
that? So then you have to listen to them.
Sorry?
So then you have to listen to them. So it's not your money.
So at least, inshallah, you can get rewarded that if I was allowed to use this as sadaqah, I would have done this,
Yeah.
right? So you still get something waiting for you, inshallah. Yeah. So it's still a win-win situation. Yeah.
Totally win-win.
Sorry?
It's a totally win-win situation.
Yeah.
Because you want sadaqah and she gets the money.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the parents come first.
MashaAllah.
You don't make that a habit.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, just to reemphasize that this is not delusional behavior. That it's very easy for people who get pious in an inconsistent way to start giving things that they don't have the right to give or they should not be giving. How is this related to the unseen? Same point. I don't know what the future holds for me. I'm giving with the trust that tomorrow I'm still going to be okay. Again, consistent pattern. So those are the first three. The next ayah is a little bit easier. They believe in the revelation sent down to you. Who's you here? Easy question. The Prophet, peace be upon him. What was sent down to him? Quran, what else? essentially the whole package is sent onto him, right? When we speak of the hadith, this is not the Prophet, peace be upon him, speaking out of his own desire, right? He is not going to be saying something that is contradicting what Allah Ta'ala is giving him, right? So we often say that he's given the kitab and the hikmah. Hikmah depends upon the interpreter. So when you see kitab and hikmah together, Imam al-Shafi'i, that was interesting, Imam al-Shafi'i says kitab is Quran, hikmah is sunnah. When you see kitab and hikmah together, when you see hikmah separately, not necessarily the case. Okay? But kitab can be the prescriptions, as we saw, and hikmah can be the understanding of how to practice the prescriptions, but which might also be built into the Quran. Different understandings, but the point I wanted to just draw your attention to, as the Prophet was not only given kitab, okay? That whole body that we call the sunnah is also given to him. Okay? So they believe in that which was revealed to you. This is also the first mention of the Prophet, peace be upon him, so far. We haven't mentioned him yet. Second, they believe that which was revealed before you. Okay? Another easy point, how many books are mentioned in the Quran? So, the Quran itself,
Torah,
the Torah,
Injil,
Injil,
Zabur,
Zabur,
Musaffar,
Suhuf Ibrahim.
Yeah.
Okay. I've never come across any other tradition that states that Ibrahim alayhi salam received a scripture. Right? Never come across anybody from Jewish or biblical or Christian tradition that says that. Right? They all believe that God spoke to him, but no one believes that he received scripture. This is something that seems exclusive in our tradition. The Torah, is that the same as the Torah? Majority, probably. But, okay, it's not okay. If you ask Reform Jews, they will tell you that the Torah has been written and rewritten and rewritten and rewritten. If you ask Orthodox Jews, they'll tell you that the Torah is word for word unchanged. I have a student in my MSA class at Northwestern. He's a scholar of the Talmud, and he's Israeli. And I asked him, okay, do you believe that the Torah is unchanged? He said, of course. That's interesting because we don't. Right? We believe in them, at least in their original form. What do we believe about them?
They're from Allah.
They're from Allah, right? Secondarily, that the message is the same. That the deen of all the prophets, peace be upon them, is the same. The sharia is not the same. The deen is no God but God. The sharia is different for different prophets. Injil is not the same as the Gospels. Okay? Because even in Christianity, you don't say that Jesus, peace be upon him, received the Injil, or received the Gospels. These are the apostolic witness, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and so forth and so on, right? Nevertheless, it still seems to be the case that a lot of things that our sources say are in the Injil, we do find in the Gospels, in terms of the teachings of Jesus, peace be upon him. There's a really nice book called The Muslim Jesus, published by Tarif Khalidi, that if you ever get around to it, it's our narrations of what Isa alayhi salam says. Okay. Really, really nice collection.
By who?
So, Tarif Khalidi. So he's just compiling them from our hadith books.
Arif,
Yeah,
Khalid.
Khalidi. Yeah.
Any relation to Rashid Khalid?
I wonder about that. Might be. Because I remember thinking about that when I first came across his name. Because he's also a historian.
Oh, is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Could you briefly recap which messenger received which
Yeah.
text? it
So
starts
Ibrahim
with-
alayhi salam received the suhuf,
and that's
which,
the earliest that we
of the
accept.
five that are mentioned.
Yeah.
But then I got a bigger point. And so we don't know if any of that is existence anywhere in the world.
So Ibrahim received the what?
Suhuf. But suhuf just basically means pages. Like newspaper is sahifa.
Pages. Okay.
Torah is Musa, peace be upon him.
Yeah.
And I'm intentionally using the Arabic names
Yeah.
to make the point that it is not necessarily the same as Moses and the Torah. Right? We accept that they are, yeah, but not necessarily. Injil and Isa. Oh, the next one would be Zabur and Dawood. Same question. Is the Zabur what we have in the King James Bible as Psalms? Maybe, maybe not.
And then
Injil
Yeah.
for Isa alayhi salam. And I'm saying that no Christian claims that the Gospels are a revelation to Jesus. Christianity, Jesus himself is the revelation, and these are witnesses. So,
Those are essentially hadith, essentially, right? I mean, isn't that how we?
The way we look
Popular.
at hadith, meaning this is what the Prophet, peace be upon him, is reported to have said,
Yeah.
would be what part of the Gospels are,
Yeah.
right? The red letter, the part that Jesus, peace be upon him, says. Okay. Now, however, there's 5 that are mentioned in the Quran. How many books have there been revealed in history? The number might be as high as 1,000. The number might be as high as 1,400 books that Allah Ta'ala has revealed throughout history. Now, there's one understanding among many that those other 1,000 books, their overall content is summarized in these 4. And these 4 are summarized in the Quran. And the point to take from this is when we think of the Prophet, peace be upon him, as the final prophet, he's not just the last, definitely he is, but he's the completion of Allah Ta'ala's communication with mankind in this form. So take what's said to be in those 4 books, and it is compiled, properly organized in the Quran. To look at it from another perspective, think of all the prophets that are mentioned in the Quran. Moses, peace be upon him, Musa, Nuh, Ibrahim alayhi salam, so on and so on, right? In the Quran's revelation, why are those stories there? For us, okay, here's stories of previous prophets. But they're reflecting things that are happening to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in that moment. So when does Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, receive Surah Yusuf? First, what is Surah Yusuf about? Here's Yusuf alayhi salam suffering from jealousy, hostility from his brothers, to the point that he gets disowned and he gets abandoned. Goes through all of these intense struggles, dropped in a well. The wife of the Aziz tries to seduce him. He gets put into prison. But at the end, he succeeds. Okay? So what is this about? This is a story of sabr. Sabr of Yusuf, as well as the sabr of his father, who always trusted that my son is okay. Okay? When does Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, receive this? After Taif. Taif, he says, the worst day of my whole life. Right? Rejected completely. Right? And then he's receiving this. So the point is that when we're seeing that portion of that story of a previous prophet, we're also getting in touch of what's happening to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in that moment. Okay? So here's a portion of Adam and Eve, peace be upon them. This is relevant to whatever's happening to the Prophet, peace be upon him, at the time. Okay. And so the point being that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is also the compilation, the culmination of all the previous prophets into one person. So the law of Musa alayhi salam, the relation, we might call it the spirit of the law, the love of Isa alayhi salam, right? The perseverance and da'wah of Nuh alayhi salam, right? The struggles, again, against everything of Yusuf alayhi salam. So all the prophets combined are put into Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So, yeah.
Does that mean that it was incomplete when Yusuf alayhi salam's time, the religion was incomplete?
I would say, I want to say yeah, but I think of a better word than incomplete. Meaning it was completed enough for its time, or sufficient was given. Because even what do we consider to be the last ayah? Al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum. So today I have akmaltu, I have completed for you your deen, right? Or perfected for you. And so the way this is commonly understood is that with revelation, with prophets, Allah Ta'ala is also putting humanity through the social evolution, the pinnacle of which is Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Or think like same surah, in the middle of the surah, Ibrahim alayhi salam is in Makkah, and he prays to Allah Ta'ala, this is relevant for you guys, he prays to Allah Ta'ala, raise up from among these people a messenger who will recite your ayahs, who will purify them, who will teach them the kitab, will teach them the hikmah, right? And so who was that person? It was Muhammad, peace be upon him. How long did it take for that dua to manifest? Ibrahim alayhi salam to Muhammad, peace be upon him. We're talking maybe 3,000 years, 4,000 years. So one really neat way to look at that is that it took that long for the world to be made ready for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? That's how amazing Rasulullah is. So think about how amazing Ibrahim alayhi salam is. Okay? That the world had to go through 4,000 years of development. Yeah. Yes?
What about the idea of, I know that we've been asked this question many times when non-Muslims groups come in too, and we talk about, how we do believe in the same prophets, the same people like, you know, Abraham and Moses and things like, you know, people like that. But the idea that there was a messenger or a prophet that was sent to every nation, every tribe,
Sure.
to bring that concept of just one God, just, you know, the La ilaha illallah, and kind of flowing into what you said, it just being that the revelation that they got was sufficient for their little community.
Yeah.
Whereas what Prophet Muhammad ﷺ got, it was for all time,
Mhm.
which is why
So-
it was, you know, which is why it was so. I mean, this is a completion, right?
Mhm.
So that being that, maybe basically saying it wasn't that their revelations were incomplete;
Mhm.
it was complete for their time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
meaning they weren't meant to be universalized, right? Whereas the Quran was meant for not just the nation but beyond. Okay, so we believe in the revelations sent to those before you, and the key point to take is that there may have been 1,000 or more other revelations, but the Quran is the completion of that whole process. The Prophet, peace be upon him, is the completion of the whole process. That obviously is connected to the unseen. And the sixth one, they are certain, they have yaqeen of the akhirah. What is certainty? What is the difference between belief and certainty?
You can try to see if you.
Certainty. Certainty is like with your intellect, with your eyes, absolute certainty. Right? We speak of ilm al-yaqeen, ayn al-yaqeen, you see it, it's there.
Is this the fifth point?
This is 6. So 4 was the revelation sent to you, 5 was revelation to those sent before you. And then 6 is certainty of the hereafter. So now, what does this mean in practice? Because we're already saying Iman, the way we're describing Iman, it sounds like certainty, right? That it's just, I'm comfortable that it's in its truth. Right? So the easy way to test this is, okay, first let me ask you, what are you certain of? Are you certain of anything?
Death.
Certain of death. Okay, everybody agree? You're all certain you're going to die.
Yeah.
Okay. Certain of anything else?
Certain that I'm alive.
Certain that you are alive at this moment. Which is interesting because that student of mine could not even say that. Right? Yeah. That's fine. Anything else that you're certain of?
I mean, like we're sitting here.
We're sitting here, we have our families.
Usually, most of the answers come down to these 2 points. I'm certain I'm going to die, and I'm certain about the present. Yeah. Right? Usually I'll have a 13-year-old in the class who says, I'm certain about Allah, right? Something like that, right? But here's the real test. Okay? If we all say we're certain that we're going to die, now what I should do is look at how did I live my life from the moment I woke up today until this point today. Okay? Look at everything that I did from the moment I woke up to the moment I got here. Was that the behavior of someone who is certain they're going to die? If yes, then I can say I have yaqeen of the hereafter. Okay, so in your mind, recap everything you did from the moment you woke up until this moment right now.
Woke up like from the.
This morning.
This morning.
Whether it was for Fajr, not for Hidayah
No,
or...
I think what you said, like from the day that you.
Were born?
gained consciousness.
Okay, no, I'm just saying, I'm making it easy. I'm just making, these last 10 hours, or for some undergrads, these last 20 minutes. But the point is, from the moment I woke up until now, was that the behavior, was that the consciousness of someone who has certainty of the hereafter? Okay. If the answer is no, then it's not as easy for me to say that I have yaqeen of the hereafter. I may have no doubt intellectually that I'm going to die. Okay. But the way we commonly live is we don't really think about it. Right? Yes?
It's interesting because it's, because we're getting in that Hajj prep mode
Yeah.
now. Just listening to like the lectures and things like that. I was listening to a lecture on preparing our will and stuff, and then all of a sudden I started thinking about my kids, and I was like,
Yeah.
what if I don't come back?
Yes,
And I mean,
yeah.
I was just overcome, and just bawling my eyes out. And I had to call my friend, and she calmed me down.
You didn't talk to your husband, did you?
He wasn't here.
That's
I called
what she meant. She called her husband Muhammad.
yeah. So, and I got, she helped me calm me down. But basically, and that was one thing she said was that it was like, you know, we have to realize that, you know, our children are not ours.
Yeah.
And we have no control over this.
Absolutely.
And, you know, it could happen in Hajj, or it could happen
Yeah.
on your way to pick them up from school.
Absolutely.
And, you know, it's just that preparation. And you don't think about it until you're actually going into it.
Yeah.
And she asked me a really interesting question. She goes, you know, when you went on vacation with your husband and left your kids with your in-laws, did you ever think about the fact that you might not come back?
Mhm.
And I was like, no, you know, because you feel like, oh, well, we're gonna come back.
Yeah.
But then when you're going to Hajj, it's like your mind is so, it's turning in a different direction.
So,
And
so you're actually,
subhanAllah, it's
so
like,
essentially you've actually begun your Hajj. That's what that means.
uh,
That's the side
yeah,
theological.
no, but I mean,
Yeah.
but it's interesting because it's like your viewpoint changes. But nonetheless, when I woke up this morning, was I, you know, acting as if I was gonna die? No, I wasn't. You know, like, so it's still,
Yeah.
it's like it's a mindset that's
It
really hard
is.
to get into.
It takes a lot of effort to get into it, so it takes a lot of effort to sustain. This very serious consciousness that my hereafter is, like we always say, you know, this could be my last prayer. Right? You know, a practice that I do with my daughters, probably give or take 2 or 3 times a year, is that I try to take them to the cemetery and we just talk. Right? Kids can handle all these things. Kids can handle all these big, heavy concepts, death, God, and everything, often much better than we can. I noticed this teaching all ages. When I have students who are 70 years old, non-Muslim students who are 7 years old, they never want to talk about death. They never want to talk even about the day of judgment hereafter. 4-year-olds, they love it. But, you know, paradise, they love talking about. They love talking about even hell, right? Because then you get that, you know, like you're watching a horror movie type feel. But it's easy for kids. But it's, this is the simple test for myself, right? Can I say that that my conduct, more than that, my consciousness, today only, is a consciousness of someone who really believes that my hereafter could literally be one step away from it. But the people of Taqwa are there. They have وَبِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ. They have certainty. The certainty, again, yaqeen, of the hereafter. Meaning, you see it in their consciousness, you see it in their action. So he gives us 6 attributes, or 6 of the attributes of those who have taqwa. And what does it say in the next ayah? Ayah 5, أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَىٰ هُدًى مِّن رَبِّهِمْ. On them is guidance. They are on the way of guidance. وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Muflihun, the common translation is they are successful. But trace this back to the etymology, which is in agriculture. They are cultivated. Okay? This is what muflihun means. You know, like a soil that's been cultivated. Which is interesting because the next topic is kafirs, which also the meaning relates to agriculture when you're covering a seed. But what is the success of the person of taqwa? What is that success that we talk about?
Do you say guidance is on them or they are on?
So if a literal translation, ulaika, they, ala, hudan, min rabbihim. So they are on guidance from their Rabb. Okay. But what that means is guidance is on them, right? So if we say guidance is on them, they're on the path of guidance, it becomes almost a semantic difference.
Okay.
Yeah. But the little translation is, they, ulaika, ala, hudan, min rabbihim. They are on huda, from their Rabb, from their nourisher. But what is the success?
Peace in this life, and the hereafter.
So akhirah, paradise, or the pleasure of God. Yeah. And this life, peace of heart, right? Gratitude, an understanding of reality. Okay? Understanding reality for what it really is. Sorry?
Where's that, those definitions? 'Cause
I'm taking all this from different parts of the Quran.
Okay.
putting it all together.
Because, yeah, the understanding of reality, I think, is like a really huge point of success that I don't think,
Mhm.
yeah, like, is emphasized.
Yeah, for example, I mean, not related specifically to taqwa, but a very common prayer of the Prophet, peace be upon him, the translation is, "Oh Allah, show me the reality of things as they are. Allahumma arini haqiqati ashya kama hiya." So Allah, show me reality as it really is.
Isn't there something like those who recognize truth, like those who when they see truth they recognize it? What is
So that would be like the siddiqeen that we're
Yeah.
talking about, yeah. So the point being that when you understand reality, you're understanding, another way to put it is you understand priorities. Your priorities are straight. They're truly straight. Because even think about this. In my Sunday school today, the teacher asked all these parents, okay, make a list of 10 goals you have for your children. Okay? And so everybody, number one was, to be a good Muslim or to be a good believer or something like that, right? Okay. But the real question is, for me to ask, okay, if that is my first primary goal, how much effort am I putting into that? That'll indicate what my real goal is versus the lip service I give myself. But the point being that the simple understanding would be that this world is temporary. Any effort I put into this world is temporary, it's fleeting. What I do is permanent. The actions go with me. And even think about that hadith that we all know of the Prophet, peace be upon him, where he speaks of the three things that continue to compile good for you, right? Upright children who pray for you. You write something that people continue to benefit from. And what's the third one? Not necessarily in that order. Yeah, Sadaqah Jariyah, where people continue to benefit, right? There, the Prophet is even giving us an ethic, right? What to focus on. So what are the three really great things I can invest my time with? In parenting my child, right? To raise my child to be an upright child, and thus my child is praying for me. And thus that person's child is praying for them, and hopefully for me too, right? And I'm investing myself in projects that have lasting akhirah benefits, right? And then likewise for the donation, or likewise for writing. That I'm investing myself in such a way in projects or people who do projects that can continue to benefit other people. Writing what? You're writing things that will bring people closer to Allah. This becomes an ethic through the narration. But the point I'm making is that the people of taqwa have their sense of priority straight. What matters, what doesn't matter. So that would be the attributes of those who have taqwa. So this is the person to aspire to. This is not even an instruction, at least not yet, but this is the person to aspire to. Next time, inshallah, we're going to see two of three opposites. I said the main opposite is the fasiq. But next time we're going to see the kafir. That might take up the whole period, but then after that we're going to look at the munafiq. Question?
Yeah. You know what you were saying, like like a sadaqah jariyah. Does it have to be like something Islamic, like building a masjid? Could you like just build a normal like library on a campus? Like?
That's a nice question. You find that point getting debated about. So your intention should be fi sabilillah, right? And you can make the argument that if it's benefiting people, then by definition it's a benefit, right? Because, like, for example, if I give people water, that is not an overtly, like, so one of the greatest sadaqah jariyahs is that I can, open up a fountain or open up a well, right? You can make the argument technically, except in the sense that I'm feeding people, that it's not Islamic, in the sense it's calling people to Allah. So Allah knows best.
And then also, like, if you create, like, say you create like a community center, right? Like to service the Muslim community or something like that.
Yeah.
And then they end up using it for like something that it's not really conducive to the community and it's just harming everything. But your intention was good.
So this is where it gets interesting. So we are taught that if I intend to do good, I get rewarded, right?
Yeah.
So bam, that's covered. Okay? If I intend to do something and I'm able to do it, then how much do I get rewarded? 10 to 700, right? Maybe more. But think about how that would work out. One is simply that Allah Ta'ala just chooses to give me whatever amount of reward. Another way is that Allah Ta'ala chooses to manifest the effect of my good deed, right? So I give this person some money, and then all of you get inspired because of me to give somebody some money. Okay? But that's not in my control. That's in Allah Ta'ala's control, right? So that becomes up to Allah Ta'ala, whether He wills for me to have this amount of benefit from my action or that amount of benefit. This is really interesting because if you look at all of our big scholars, many of them were rejected either in their time or shortly after their time. Imam Bukhari was rejected in his time. You know what Imam Bukhari was accused of? He was accused of bid'ah, which is so interesting, right? Because we've never done this before. This is an innovation. And there's a story, it might be a legend, but it's still a good story, that he was so rejected that it reached the point that people were chasing after him to kill him, right? Because of his collection of hadith. And then he is reported to have said, "Oh Allah, your people have rejected me in this world, please take me into your world." And then suddenly he dies. Whether or not it's true, it's still a good story. But the key point I'm making is that imagine life without Bukhari's collection, right? He was rejected in his time. Imam al-Ghazali's books were burnt like 100 years after him. In Spain, they were getting burnt as heretical.
So, there's 40 books altogether, right?
Of the Ihya.
Yeah. How many of those are actually translated?
Into English?
Yeah,
Now, probably about 30 at least.
30.
Most of them are.
Is there one that's, because I've seen the Daisy version and the English is just horrible, man.
Yeah, it's usually the case for a lot of these things,
You
yeah.
know, so is there one that you think is a really good translation?
You have to get the translation from Tim Winters,
Yeah, it's
T.J.
like
Winters.
you-
Are you saying it's 30 or 50?
Yeah, I'm saying, because I have, like, there's for different topics, there's individual books, like the worship one is one.
Yeah, yeah.
He has one for marriage,
Yeah.
alchemy of happiness and all this stuff.
Alchemy
But-
of Happiness is different.
Is it different? Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm wondering is, have you come across a good English translation?
Well, those that are published by ITS,
Uh-huh.
Islamic Text Society, which is what Abdul Hakim Murad is part of,
Oh, okay.
yeah, are very, very rigorous.
Okay.
They're very expensive. I think they're like
Yeah.
unnecessarily expensive, but that's the state
That's
of
the
things.
best one.
And so of those, I think maybe 20 have been translated.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive project. But the real good thing, aside from the book themselves, is the introductions in those books are also really awesome.
Yeah.
The best one probably to start with is the intro to the orange one, Disciplining the Soul, Breaking the Two Desires. It gives you a wonderful, just, understanding of here's what the Sufis
What's
are.
the title of that book?
It's 2 books. Disciplining the Soul is one, Breaking the Two Desires is the other. And they usually publish them either in one thin book or 2 in a fatter book. I think they might be publishing them in single books now because the 2 is usually expensive, $40 to $50.
Where do you get that from?
But if you go to Fonds Vitae, or just if you Google Islamic Text Society, you can.
Fonds Vitae?
Yeah. Yeah.
About the,
yeah.
sorry, this is just.
So the key point I'm making is that I do the work to the best of my ability, okay? And then it's up to Allah Ta'ala where he takes it.
About like the point about how you're talking about a lot of your students and stuff, like that
Mhm.
I think it's kind of interesting that like this is what is very bitter for them, and then like I think even at this point the Quran it's kind of revealed in a very like soft way almost, because it's not like you have to do this, you have to do
Yeah.
this. It's like, these are good things, and like
Yeah.
this is what the muttaqeen have. Like so
Yeah.
it's not even like
It's a
even
very
though
important
it's,
point.
yeah, even though it's like la rayba fihi, but like immediately after it's like, okay,
Good traits.
if you wanna like this is not if you're not comfortable with this, if you can't do this, like this, it's just kind of introducing it without really.
I think it's a really
forcing
important
it.
observation. In the first half of Al-Baqarah, we have 7 commands, right? So we still haven't even gotten to the first command yet, right? Second half of Baqarah, we have quite a few. But the point being that, in the first 143 ayahs, very, very few actual instructions. We're being given in doses. Any last questions or thoughts? Okay, so inshallah next time we will get into the kafirs. And one question to think about in preparation for that is that if I'm introducing Islam, I'm going to talk about happy things. Allah Ta'ala introducing Islam to us, Al-Fatiha is happy. What we've covered so far is happy, and then we get to very unhappy things, kafirs and munafiqs. So what wisdom can we gather from that? Okay. Okay, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika